That unless you would prefer to, Paul. I mean, I think among the options that need to be discussed in executive session are an action for dissolution, for partition. Both the township and the borough arguably have an interest in the Newtown Corporation, and the two municipalities may not be of like mind as to how to approach it. For the appointment of a receiver to operate and wind up the affairs of the corporation. Damages to return funds?
Well, also, I mean, I don't believe, because of the phrasing of the motion in authorizing legal action, I think were the terms that Perry used, I don't necessarily believe that that means filing of an actual complaint in court. It can also mean that counsel will, in executive session, direct me to meet with representatives from the corporation or try to resolve it in a non-litigious manner. But, again, I leave that to you and what you're deciding to have me do. I certainly won't be going tomorrow and taking any action until, counsel has an opportunity to meet with me in executive session and give more clear direction. But I view that direction as being rather broad in allowing a different variety of actions to be taken, which, like I said, could include litigation and could possibly avoid litigation. But that's a specific matter to be discussed in executive session.
Just one other point. I mean, I know we've invested about $28,000 in the corporation so far, and I think we have to keep in mind that we've gotten value from that over the past 5-6 years. So I think, from the standpoint of what we have put into the corporation, I think we should be more than satisfied that the taxpayers got their money's worth out of it. So,
well, if we dusted off Chris Artwine's presentation that she made to us 2.5 years ago, the number was just under $1 million of improvements that have been realized by the borough. And I think we have a responsibility to go back and take a look at that too. And I think Paul needs to have an appreciation for how the Newtown Corporation did in fact benefit the borough. We can't ignore that fact. I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater in terms of the good that's been done by the corporation in light of roughly a $30,000 contribution. I'd take that return on investment anytime.
I think it's important to consider that a lot of that money that was turned back into the borough was in fact ultimately taxpayer money. Grants and so on and so forth, the Main Street program and all the work that was done with that. And I think the issue that we've been grappling with for the last several years actually has been the fact that the Main Street program itself was coming to an end, that the grant funding, which is public funding, was coming to an end, that the direction of the corporation or the JD&C in becoming the Newtown Corporation needed to be identified, and we have discussed this ad nauseum over the last couple years and have made several attempts to try to figure out what was going on and backed away and so on. And I think what's happened over the last 6 months, actually not 6 months, 5 months, has been very serious. I think that there's been a turn, a change for the worse. I don't think it's been helpful for anyone, the kinds of actions that have happened regarding the Newtown Corporation with the current members and what's happened with the schism that's developed, and that we've had the life of the corporation that was on State Street, being those State Street retailers who've pulled away and established their own organization and not being happy with what the corporation has done, and then to have the corporation threaten to use the public monies to sue the very people that they were supposed to be helping, I think is very sad. There is a set of bylaws. This is not the Wild West where you can come in and show your pistols and get what you want. That there were certain rules and laws, or bylaws and agreements and so on that have created the corporation and made it a public nonprofit entity, and certain rules that it agreed upon itself that was how it was going to operate. Not the very least of which being that one of the foundations of the corporation and the JD&C before it was that it was supposed to be a meeting ground for the two municipalities so that we could work together on a business district which goes into both municipalities. And that it was one way, and it certainly had shown in certain instances been very successful in bringing people of like mind from both sides of the creek together to do some of these things. However, that's not the way things have been going, and to turn around and say, well, now we're independent and you really, and we don't care that you are supposed to be able to, well, you are actually not only entitled but required to appoint your board members, and then have certain members of the board of the corporation turn around and refuse to seat those duly appointed members to the board, I think is extremely serious. And I think if nothing else, this motion before council is saying to the community, to everyone involved who's been following this ridiculous story for the last year, that we're serious and that something really has to be done. We will be relying on our solicitor to tell us what, in fact, is the best way to achieve what our ultimate outcomes are, and that's another discussion, but I think that council, if council passes this motion, it will be council saying, listen, we are serious, and we're going to take whatever action is required in order to protect the public interest. And in this case, there is money, and there is also our State Street Business District, which is the life of the borough. And if we don't protect it, and if we don't make sure that things that are created to help it are actually helping it, then we aren't doing our job.
I honestly thought that we'd be able to hopefully work things out, and unfortunately it didn't work out, but I tend to agree with Gerard. My concern tonight is leaving that broad spectrum and the possibility of litigation. I think the main reason why I became a liaison was to specifically avoid that, and I think you would agree probably every step of the way that was my biggest thing. I don't think it's good for the community. I'm not here to say what the State Street business owners feel and what they should do. You guys, they own their businesses. They know how to run their businesses, but obviously the two of them are not going to work together. So what I would like to see maybe in the motion is that, we at least try to get together and make some kind of agreement between the borough, Newtown Corporation, and the township prior to going to some kind of legal action, and really see if we can work this out and just, to Julia's point, end this. That's been going on for a while, but my concern and my fear is that if we get to litigation, it's not going to be helpful to anyone. It's really not going to help the community at all. So I don't know if we could do that, or if we could amend the motion, or be maybe a little more specific, or even agree to meet with the three groups, because I don't think the township is feeling the same way that we're feeling right now.
If I could speak to that, John, because I think what you just said last is true. The township isn't exactly feeling the same way we are. And I think that's the problem with the suggestion of taking more time to sit down, which otherwise seems very reasonable, with the corporation, the township, and the borough to sit down and try and work out some sort of orderly wind-up of the affairs of the Newtown Corporation. I think that's a great idea. Problem is that the township has signaled pretty clearly it thinks the Newtown Corporation is doing just fine. That's number one. Number two, the Newtown Corporation itself, or I should say the people running it, don't seem inclined to take direction or requests from anyone. They seem more inclined to do whatever they want, to spend the money however they want to threaten our business people, and to tell us that we can't tell them what to do anymore because they don't honor the bylaws. I don't know how you sit down in a meeting and have a reasonable discussion with them to say, how about winding up your affairs and let's negotiate a distribution of the monies between the township and the borough to be put to good purpose. I don't know how you do that with these personalities, because they've made very clear they don't respect us. They threaten our retailers. They don't honor their bylaws. So, while I think the goal is a good one, and I wish there was some sign of hope for that process, I just don't see it happening. And I must say, I see and listen to Perry's motion for the broadness for which it is, which is to have the legal tools available to us immediately to do what we have to do. For my own part, I see the continuing actions just of this past week as more of a thumbing of the nose to us, of a group that has no interest whatsoever of even helping the borough anymore, and in fact threatening the borough. So I'm not quite sure what purpose we would see in trying to engage them in an orderly process. It seems to me the only thing they may understand is something of a legal nature, so we can bring this thing to a head. I do know this also. For every day that goes by, for every week, for every month, there are thousands of dollars being spent that were raised by people who thought they would be put to good purpose, and they're not being put to good purpose. And if we keep talking for the next couple months, there won't be any money left. We heard at our work session there's $50,000 tied up in CDs. Well, there's $50,000. I don't know how much is left in the general account, which is being drained to $10,000 a month, but I hope it's some money. But again, soon there won't be anything to talk about dividing because it will be gone. It seems to me we honor our fiduciary obligations, we do the duty to our citizens, and we also honor our business people, who this was supposed to help most directly by, as I say, taking all the legal tools available to us and acting. And if we go another month, I think we're going to be here talking about just the most recent transgressions of the people running this group, and I don't think we want to do that next month if we can begin to bring this to a conclusion between now and then.